So as I mentioned, we're calling today Small Group Emphasis Sunday. And here's what's going to happen. First, I'm going to make a few comments, short message on Hebrews 10, 24 and 25, which is a great text for small groups. And then a representative from each of the current small groups will share just briefly 1 or 2 or maybe 3 minutes about the who, when, and where of their groups, and maybe some aspect of what makes them distinctive. And then we're going to split up the whole congregation and ask you to take your chair to one of the corners of the room, one of the groups, where you can hear a little bit more about one particular group. I'll have more thoughts about that at the other end of this. If you're involved in a group even a little bit, go to that group. If you're not, just pick one group that might work for you, or even if you know that none of the groups is going to work for you, just go hang out with one for today. In fact, maybe you can become an affiliate member of a group, someone involved in the activities of the group, who gets the communications of the group, even though you can't attend the normal meetings of the group. So small groups are a place where we can meet to encourage and spur one another on. So we're going to look briefly here at Hebrews 10, 24 and 25, which encourages us and even commands us to that kind of relationship with each other. It says this: let us consider how to stir one another up to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. So we see first that community requires conscious effort. Let us consider how to stir one another up or spur one another on. I've always loved the fact that the author says, let's think about this. Let's be intentional about this. It isn't something that just happens without thought. We have to set our minds to it. We plot, scheme, strategize about how we can help others. And notice that this is plural, as I showed in small group. Literally, we ourselves think together. We don't even need the y'all Bible to see this. It says very clearly, let us consider. It's a group activity. Scheme together about this. Small groups are a great place for this edifying scheming to take place. And what are we supposed to scheme about? How to spur one another on, how to provoke one another to active love. Provoke isn't a gentle word. The root means sharpen or goad. It's the picture of someone putting spurs in the side of a horse. We're supposed to picture how to goad people into community. What will motivate so-and-so to get involved? How can we encourage this person? How does God want to use that person? And the goal of this thinking and scheming, the goal of our goading is love. Spur one another on to love. Now, in order to understand that, you have to remember that love is more than an emotion. Not less, but definitely more. What we're trying to figure out here is how to help people to move on into acts of love and works of goodness, compassion, simple kindness. Small groups are a great place to launch these simple acts of love. Babysitting for a mom who has a doctor's appointment, setting up or cooking for a wedding, helping someone diagnose a car or put up a fence. And these can include working together to show God's love to others, volunteering at Galveston Urban Missions, or at a food bank, or at a crisis pregnancy center, or doing a car wash to raise funds for a mission trip or for a family in need. A small group is a great place to conspire together to commit acts of love and good works toward each other and toward others. My own experience with small groups confirms this. I've told these stories before. When Gail and I moved to Texas, far from family and friends, we tried several churches. Eventually, we tried Clear Lake Bible Church. The difference there was this guy who leaned back over the chairs, introduced himself, and invited us to the small group that met at his home. That guy was Paul Christensen. Frank and Cheryl Kittle were part of that group, along with many others who became lifelong friends to Gail and I. And it made a huge difference. In 1983, when our firstborn Bethany was just 6 weeks old, my father passed away in Florida. I don't even remember who we called, but within the hour, Sandra Christensen showed up, helping us to figure out how to pack, how to travel with a brand new baby, which we'd never done. And before we left that afternoon, much of the small group had checked in or come by to offer encouragement, to help, and to pray. These people had become family to us. We're called to be intentional, to consider what will spur others on to love. But all such schemes require something very simple. You've got to show up. Your schemes must transform themselves into actual presence face to face. Verse 25, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some. Some among this letter's recipients had a habit of not meeting with other Christians. Like many people today, they isolated themselves. They thought they could live as Christians without contact with other Christians. But not one of the love one another's in Scriptures can be done by yourself. It can't be done in isolation. So the instruction here, the instruction is this: don't neglect to meet together. Don't forsake it. Don't abandon it. All right, the Greek word is synagogue, the Jewish meeting place. Over the centuries, the Jews have been scattered across the nations. But wherever they went, they would meet. They would synagogue on the Sabbath to read the Torah, to pray together. The word is actually strengthened here. A Greek prefix intensifies it. It's really meeting together, emphatically meeting together. There are, of course, many ways of meeting together. One is corporate worship, where we celebrate God's presence and His Word together. There's one-on-one meetings, where we listen to each other's deepest needs and carry each other's burdens to the Lord in prayer. But small group is an essential in-between, more personal than Sunday morning, but with more corporate strength, flexibility, gifts than one-on-one meetings. You personally can't spur on everybody in the church to love, but you can positively provoke one another in a small group. So I encourage you not to consider a small group a burden, but a privilege, a place to be refreshed by the love that we share with one another. We can have fun in small groups. We can serve in small groups. We can one another in so many ways in small groups. But most of all, the author says we're to be careful to use small groups to encourage, to build up, rather than breaking down. Verse 25 again, not neglecting to meet together as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another. And all the more as you see the day drawing near, which I believe we do see. The key word, though, is to encourage. It could be translated exhort, urge, appeal, comfort, cheer up. It's one of those words that has a wide range of meaning. So let me end with just a very few of the places this word is used in Scripture and give you a feel for what we're called to do in small groups. First, we're to comfort each other. Paul says in 2 Corinthians, using that same word, that we are comforted in our afflictions so that we may be able to comfort those in any affliction. This is a huge thing that can happen in small groups. But we're also to exhort each other. 2 Corinthians 5:20, therefore we are ambassadors for Christ, God making His appeal through us. We implore you on behalf of Christ, be reconciled to God. We appeal to each other to walk with the Lord, to continue in faithfulness. And if necessary, we plead, we challenge. And we do those things from Scripture, not just from our own thinking. In Thessalonians, Paul says, therefore, encourage each other with these words. We encourage each other, we implore each other, we comfort each other with the words of Scripture. And we consciously try to say to each other the things that will build others up and draw others closer to the Lord. So that's it, very simply. What have we said? First, that in small groups we have the opportunity to think together about how we can spur one another on toward love and toward good deeds. We think about how to provoke ourselves to love and how to show that love in practical ways. Second, in order to love and care, or to be loved and cared for, you've got to show up. Let us not neglect to meet together, and especially today we're saying in small groups. And third, when we meet, in addition to showing love by our deeds, we also want to encourage with our words, to build each other up, to choose words that achieve that edification in other people's lives. So it's a very simple program. In small groups we meet to encourage and to spur one another on.